So, one of the things you got to love about the world of marketing is that we have a lot of jargon that we sort of take for granted that everyone knows. There's the four P's, there's A B testing, there's B2B and B2C, there's CPC, which is cost per click, there's ROI, which is return on investment, there's SEO or search engine optimization, there's media buying, there's customer persona, there's KPIs, which are also key performance indicators, there's geofencing, there's inbound marketing. The list goes on. But one piece of jargon you really can't afford to not understand in the 21st century is CRM, or Customer Relationship Management. And while this activity doesn't always fall under the marketing function because it's often going to utilize a database platform with some IT hooks and some sales-oriented features, marketers at the very least need to be familiar with the concept and think about how, no matter how big or small their organization is, they can be using CRM to build stronger relationships with their customers, clients, prospects, or stakeholders. So let's do a quick dive today into CRM and talk about where it came from, how it's used today, and how you can integrate it into your marketing strategy. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this is the Marketing Gateway. So let's start with why CRM is important. It allows you to store a lot of information about your individual customers, prospects, and stakeholders, and then better adjust your operations, marketing, and customer service to meet their needs. This might sound counterintuitive, but by delegating the details about customer relationships to a computer system, you can often do a better job of serving customers than you might if you simply relied on memory, notes, and human relationships alone. CRM also allows you to scale your relationships much more easily than by trying to maintain them personally, because the computer system can target the appropriate audience for your communications, promotions, offers, and even interventions if you're worried a customer might be headed elsewhere. The term CRM can be traced back to the 1990s, and it was an outgrowth of two ideas that arose from the rapid computerization of business during the 1980s and early 90s. As desktop computers and many computer mainframe style systems allowed businesses to build databases of customer data, contact management software like the program ACT, which means automated contact tracking, arose to allow business to business relationships to be more easily tracked and detailed on a computer instead of on paper documents. The idea of ACT was to be a digital Rolodex. And if you're too young to remember Rolodexes, and by the way, I'm young enough to have never used one myself, these were systems that people used that had cards that they could write on, where they would keep track of written information in a manner that was usually stored in an alphabetical way. Phone numbers, business cards, details about clients, all either typed on a typewriter or handwritten, all kept on the desk of the person managing those relationships in this kind of rolling sort of file, all valuable information that was completely decentralized. Beyond Rolodexes, corporate workers also had elaborate systems of storing information. One you'll often hear referenced from the 1970s and 80s, especially in books or movies from that era, is the tickler file, a system using 43 specially labeled manila envelopes to organize tasks and documents into folders reflecting the date and month in which a task needs to be completed. So, for example, if you made contact with a prospect today and they asked you to give them a call next week to set up a meeting, you'd write a note reminding yourself of the details of the conversation along with instructions to call the prospect, and then you would put it in the correct future date in your tickler file and then act on it when it came up in your daily task folder a week later. If it's next month instead, you'd put the file into next month's catch-all folder and then sort everything out near the end of the current month. Another method of keeping track of business contacts was known as the Farley file, named after President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's campaign manager, James Farley. This system involved keeping really detailed records about contacts that Roosevelt or his campaign staff were meeting with, capturing both professional and personal details as granular as the names of contact spouses, children, and even the age of their kids. This allowed for a feeling of intimacy during meetings and was widely utilized by subsequent politicians, business executives, and community leaders, but it also required an enormous amount of work and effort to keep going. If this all sounds tedious and a bit complicated, well, guess what? That's because it is. And I won't even get into the even more complicated systems people develop with accordion files, index cards, and pocket calendars, or how much their lives could be ruined by having these systems go missing or get damaged by a spilled drink or an office sprinkler system gone awry. As I'm sure you can guess, these systems of storing and retrieving information were only marginally efficient and also tended to rely a lot on memory and good personal organization habits. This is one reason why a lot of business tended to be done at predetermined events or venues like social clubs, conventions, or chamber of commerce meetings. Putting all this information into a computer not only meant that the information was easier to search, update, and share with others, but also easier to centralize into a larger computer system as well as into software that could be prompted. This led to another idea called Salesforce Automation, or SFA. One of the early pioneers of SFA was Tom Siebel, an Oracle employee who saw the success of Oracle's internal sales application and wanted to launch it as a standalone product. Larry Ellison, though, didn't see the market for it, so Tom Siebel formed his own company, Siebel Systems, and became the leading pioneer of SFA software in the 1990s. Siebel is also one of several people to whom the term Customer Relationship Management, or CRM, is credited. Others who are associated with the origin and popularization of the term include Pivotal Software's Director of Marketing, Sharka Chobat-Stoit, the marketing academic Dr. Jagdish and Sheth, and the research firm Gartner, along with their major client, IBM. Large technology companies like Oracle, PeopleSoft, and SAP started integrating CRM into their platforms for enterprise-scale businesses, while smaller software companies like Maximizer and Goldmine, both of which are still around, by the way, offered solutions for smaller businesses. But in 1999, two important pivots occurred. The first was the release of a Siebel Systems personal digital assistant style device called the Siebel Sales Handheld, allowing users to swap and sync their customer information without having to be at a computer. Remember that this is back when laptops were still pretty clunky, dial-up internet was still very common, and personal cell phones were just starting to catch on. The second pivot was the launch of a company called Salesforce, which offered the then novel model of software as a service, or SaaS, for business users. While Salesforce was, of course, far from the first actual software as a service company and was barely taken seriously during what would turn out to be a meltdown for internet technology startups, the platform obviously found some legs in the 2000s and became one of the poster children of the cloud computing era as more companies began using it. Today, it's probably the best known CRM platform, though there are dozens in current operation, many of which have pivoted recently to integrating AI. Now, I don't even want to try to get into the many different CRM platforms that are out there. Evaluating them is a complex process, and many of them have specific industries or types of contexts that they're best suited for serving. But let's talk for a moment about the philosophies behind these different types of systems and why they matter in the modern world. Operational CRM is still probably the most traditional and common tool in use, and its philosophy is built around creating a single customer profile page per customer and then linking that customer to three different automated systems: Salesforce automation, which is used to track customer behavior; marketing automation, which is used to track marketing outreach to customers; and service automation, which is used to direct customers to systems designed to accommodate their needs for customer service, support, knowledge bases, ticketing systems, and so forth. Now, strategic and analytical CRM systems generally are utilized to scan that customer data for opportunities to strengthen customer relationships or to look for opportunities to close gaps and improve service. Strategic CRM is more about individual customer retention and CLV, or customer lifetime value, and analytical CRM is more about thinking about the customer base and looking for macro level trends. Then there's collaborative CRM, which allows channel partners and other external stakeholders to share data and insights. And there's CDP, or customer data platforms, which pull in data from a number of sources and build customer data profiles that can augment internal data within the operational CRM platform. Another distinction is where a CRM system is designed for desktop or mobile input. And while this is not as important in 2026 as it might have been 10 or 15 years ago, since most major CRM platforms have apps that feed into the broader enterprise level backend, There's still generally a huge difference between how you interact with a CRM SaaS system via your web browser versus a dedicated mobile app. Mobile CRM based on desktop apps tends to be more limited and is more of a field resource to access the deeper data within the system than a full service CRM portal. But there are mobile first applications that are designed to be primarily used on phones and tablets and then have a desktop backend for pulling reports and looking at broader trends. The advantage of mobile CRM is that it's much easier to update, particularly if field reps are trying to input information from personal meetings, trade shows, or site visits and don't have time to get on their computer. And in fact, one of the criticisms of browser-based CRM systems is that because they tend to be built for desktop environments, they often encourage sales reps to wait until they're seated at a workstation to input information, likely losing valuable data in the process as they rely on notes and memories. Another trend is what's known as headless CRM, which is an absolutely ghoulish name for something a lot of customers already hate. CRM that's attached to an AI system, such as a large language model. The reason it's called headless, though, is because the users no longer manage the software through a visual interface or software system. Instead, the CRM system operates on its own, kind of like this big mass of data behind the scenes, and there are different layers through which users and software can interact with that CRM data. So the upshot of headless CRM is that it disentangles customer data from a limited platform and allows for omnichannel back-end that can be accessed in a variety of ways. It also allows customers and prospects to directly interface with the CRM system and receive automated responses from AI chatbots or agents while tracking that data and interactions. This can include sales inquiries, customer service requests, general feedback, and all sorts of other customer interactions. But on the other hand, having a back end that you can't easily see and interact with can be problematic, especially once you begin to add in tools like AI systems that are probabilistic and which make mistakes that can be difficult to spot if you don't have a full view of the customer data being stored. Security can also be an issue because one of the main ways the system is accessed is through an API, and that requires a strong system architecture with good controls, something that traditional systems tend to have in place already. So, after all this detail, how do you integrate CRM into your marketing strategy? Well, first of all, if you don't already have corporate CRM systems in place, you probably want to start small with something like HubSpot CRM, Zoho CRM, or Monday CRM, 3 popular platforms that are designed to help small businesses. HubSpot is the easiest to start with because it's free, but it's also the most limited in terms of automation tools and requires you to upgrade if you want better features and functionality. Zoho is far more customizable, but it can be intimidating, resulting in their introduction of a newer, more user-friendly platform called Begin, I'm not sure how you say it. And Monday CRM is really more about project management with a CRM feature on top of it. And of course, you can also just sign up for Salesforce. They have a free suite and a low-price small business suite available, and it's honestly a popular platform for a reason. But then, once you've gotten onto a CRM platform, your next step is to actually take time to learn how to use it. Don't just enter a few customers in and then give up on the amount of work required. It's a pretty big time investment to get started on a CRM system. The benefit is that you can develop a discipline of entering information and then start seeing opportunities to serve your customers better. Once you have your platform set up and understand how to use it, think about how you can really focus on the marketing aspects of the operational side of the tool. CRM platforms are very useful for reaching out to people you haven't spoken to in a while and for asking for catch-up appointments and for sharing what you've been up to, but they're also really useful for keeping your brand's offerings current and top of mind. Often in the B2B space in particular, but even in B2C, service providers get known for being the go-to provider for just one type of thing. And a good CRM-based marketing strategy can allow you to regularly remind your customers that you offer other services or products as well by targeting those who use you for that one thing that you're known for and sending them information on other service or product offerings. Then, start tracking your effectiveness and begin cultivating a stronger strategy based on evidence of strategies that work. Being able to spot trends within data is another key benefit of a CRM system, and it can help you get past your personal biases and intuitions and see what customers and prospects really respond to. Now, CRM is something businesses of any size can use, but it's particularly well suited to businesses that interact with customers in high context settings like B2B, where a lot of detail is helpful for closing a sale. So, if you're not using it, explore it. It can be a valuable part of your marketing strategy. I'm Sean in St. Louis, and this has been the Marketing Gateway. We'll see you next time. So our plug this month is for animal welfare and rescue. And I'm not going to mention any one particular organization as a place that I want you to designate your attention, because there are so many that are in need. And whether you have a local animal shelter or humane society or a place that's doing trap and release or anything along those lines, there's always a need to donate to help support the care and rehabilitation of animals in your area. One group that I do like to donate to is Stray Rescue of St. Louis. They are very well regarded in terms of their reputation. They have a 90% score on Charity Navigator, and they do a great job of getting to know the animals within, especially the urban areas, that have been abused or neglected or just set loose, have gotten loose from careless owners or things like that. And they help these animals to begin to trust humans again and to find forever homes. And I respect and admire their mission so much. But there are many other animal groups out there as well that are looking after and caring for animals that have been discarded. Now, I want to say I'm an animal lover, and there are many cats and dogs and other adoptable pets out there that people get with great intentions. You know, when they're puppies or kittens, they're cute, right? They're fun to have, but they can't care for them properly. And instead of trying to find a good forever home for these pets, they'll go out and they'll drop them off in the woods, or they'll just kind of let them go loose in their neighborhood or things like that. And this almost always is one of the worst things you can do for these animals, because they wind up coming back to where humans are living because they're dependent on humans for food. They get in fights with other pets. They get in fights with wildlife. They get hit by cars. A lot of bad things can happen. And the people that are out there watching for these animals, caring for them, having compassion for them, are people that I respect and admire like you wouldn't believe. So again, I want you to take some time, research your local animal welfare organizations in your area, and be sure to give. Because especially during the summer, these animals are threatened like you wouldn't believe by the heat and by just all the additional activity that's going on. And so anything you can do to help will make sure that these animals get another chance at a great life.